guys, let's talk about Big Van Vader. And mostly Leon White being on Boy Meets World. Jack, let me throw this picture up here. This is a great photograph of him with what was the guy's name from Boy Meet World?
Gosh, the name just slips me right now. I actually saw this when it first came. I was not a fan of this show per se. I did not that I disliked it. I just didn't watch it regular. But when I heard he was going to be on, I did watch this episode, and I've seen this a few times since then. And I thought Leon did great. Of course, I thought the whole production was good. You know, they made Leon as a very respectable character, very believable. I mean, it's a comedy show, so you're going to get comedy, but Leon handled himself just in a spectacular fashion there.
Rodney, have you seen it? Have you seen this episode?
I saw it, I think, when it first came on many moons ago.
The funny part of it is when the principal jumps over the top rope, which is just a little bitty ring, by the way. But he jumps over the top rope, and I believe he calls Van Vader Leslie in the thing. And then he was going to tell everyone his real name. And he did it. Vader did this. Leon White did this so good in this show. And I believe he had been on maybe 2 other episodes after this one as well. But good stuff. And not the main guy, but his friend takes some good bumps during this whole like 3 or 4 minute segment that they do about professional wrestling. A lot of people had a lot of good stuff to say about this. And Robert Frank said, heard he was a real genuine good person who was great with the cast. Sandra said, I don't think we need to read Sandra's stuff, but Drew Ollie said he played the dad of the big bully on the show. And I also remember the Bushwhackers being on the Family Matters at the same time. Lucy said, I love that episode. And it's Frankie the Enforcer's Pop is who he played on that show. Big Van Vader. How good was Van Vader, Rodney?
He was awesome, and a big man with that type of agility is uncommon, really. And maybe being able to do the moonsault from the top rope, and plus that he was mean looking. He was intimidating looking, and in fact, I think out of everybody they could have picked to be the WCW champion, I think he was the best man, because whoever beat him. No, really, it just seemed like nobody could beat him, really.
Yep.
Here's the thing that I want to, Vader was never used correctly in the WWF. Jack, am I just overlooking that? Is that something that I think he wasn't used well?
No, he wasn't used well at all up there, and that's a shame because he could have been, for them, the top heel. Had they used him correctly. I mean, the guy was still at the top of his game, still very believable in everything that he did. And from what I understand, he was easy to get along with up there in the back. I mean, for the most part, he was pretty easy to get along with everywhere. I mean, don't ask Paul Orndorff his opinion, but other than that, most people liked Leon. So he was definitely criminally underutilized there.
They got him over so well in Europe. That was the first place he got over. And they got him, majorly over. Then he goes to Japan. And, they make a fortune with Van Vader and there. Do you believe when he got to the WWF, did Vince just not know who he was?
I don't know if he didn't know who he was. I think he just didn't care. Maybe he just didn't see the potential. Vance was one of those, and still is. He's a body guy. And Vader was not your typical body guy by any stretch of the imagination. Now, probably the strongest guy in the dressing room. But, Vance had that vision of what he wanted guys to have a six-pack and, and all that kind of stuff. And Vader did not fit that profile in any way. But Vince lost on that legitimacy angle by not doing more with him.
But, Vader did carry the whole keg. So there's no doubt about that. I mean, he was one big dude.
Yep.
But I think a lot of the problems, and Rodney, you can weigh on in this. I think a lot of the problems is Leon went in there, Big Van Vader went in there, and he had to wrestle against Shawn Michaels. I think there might have been a lot of Missy Hyatt whining by Shawn Michaels during this time. What do you think, Rod?
It's possible. It's very possible. Because Vader was a little stiff, and he might have upset the pretty boy there. Which to me, that would just say to me, you know what? It's time for you to fight too. So if he wants to fight, go in there and fight. Because to me, the more legitimate the match is, the more it gets over. And that I learned that from wrestling too. The reason he is superstar drew so much is because they brought it to make it look as legitimate as possible. And that's because it was to them, they would beating each other to death.
Vader, there was no doubt when Vader got in the ring, he was very intense. He was a very intense wrestler. If someone has not watched Vader and Stan Hansen, where they are punching each other, I mean, very, very hard. And Stan Hansen ends up punching Leon White so hard that his eyeball comes out of his head.
Yeah, that was
Jack. People have got to be able to see this. This is an incredible, but this was not because they were trying to hurt each other. They were trying to make it look legitimate.
It was just that style. That was my style. I didn't mind getting hit, and I sure didn't mind hitting somebody else. That was just a different mind frame that we were in. I never, ever tried that intentionally hurt somebody, but I never intentionally threw something that you didn't feel either. So, those guys doing that to me made everything seem so real. And that's what we're supposed to be doing in there. We're supposed to suspend belief. And just like watching, I've said this so many times, just like watching a Star Wars movie, you don't care that it's not all real. You don't care that it's special effects. All you care about is that story and wanting to believe in what's going on. And those guys, if you didn't believe that, you're crazy.
No doubt. All right. Give us that big thumbs up. Subscribe to the page. Go one step further. Hit that notification bell.